9 minutes. That is all the 2026 World Cup needed to deliver its first goal. And in the same motion, to expose the central tension that would define this entire match. Because what we watched at the Azteca was not a contest of equals, and it was not in the end a contest of ideas. It was a well drilled home side executing a sound plan against an opponent whose plan depended on one thing it could not provide: discipline. Mexico struck early, controlled throughout, and made a man advantage tell after the halftime. South Africa's compact game plan survived barely an hour before a red card forced it into a pure damage control. And the discipline only got worse from there. Two goals, three red cards, and a result that was effectively decided by the hour mark. Today, we break down exactly how Javier Aguirre managed a numerical advantage with such control and how Hugo Bruce's compact, counter-minded South Africa team structure came apart layer by layer. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome to European Footballer Adda. This is the tactics room where we look past the scoreline and into the structures, the decisions, and the small margins that actually decide football matches. I'm your host, Devupam, and this is our opening analysis of the FIFA World Cup 2026. Our subject today is the tournament's very first fixture, Mexico against South Africa in front of a full house in Mexico City. As you can see in this match momentum chart released by Opta, each bar represents 1 minute of the match. Bigger bars indicate a higher chance of scoring at that time. A series of bigger bars for one team means they are enjoying a strong spell of dominance. Based on that approach, we have divided the match into sections based on these key match events. So we have a match start strategy, then the first Mexican goal at the 9th minute, rest of the half, the turning point, which is the first South Africa red card, then Mexico squeezes South Africa to get their second goal, the discipline collapses at the end of the match, and finally we give the tactical verdict. Let's start with the blueprints, because everything that followed flows from them. Aguirre set Mexico up in a 4-3-3 oriented entirely around sustained possession and wide overloads. The principle is straightforward but demanding to execute. Control the central third through the midfield three. Fidalgo as the deepest organizer with Lira and Gutierrez ahead of him, and use that control to pin the opposition in. But the key detail is in the fullbacks. Reyes and Gallardo are pushed extremely high, almost as auxiliary wingers. Against a five-man defense, that's a deliberate choice. It stretches the backline horizontally and forces South Africa to make an uncomfortable decision. Either follow the fullbacks out wide and break the integrity of the block, or stay narrow and concede the flanks. Jimenez leads the line centrally, with Quiñones and Alvarado starting off the touchlines and drifting inside into the half spaces. So the plan A is control tempo, force errors, and pounce on the home crowd's energy. To counter this, South Africa under Bruce answered with a 5-3-2. And I want to be fair to it because it's a coherent plan, not a negative one. The wingbacks Budau and Modiba tuck in to form a back five. Three central midfielders screen the space directly in front of them. The whole structure sits deep and narrow, with the explicit aim of compressing the distance between the lines so Mexico cannot play through the middle. And then the outlet. Foster and Reiner stays high as a front two. The only counter-attacking threat, holding their position so that when South Africa wins the ball, there is an immediate target to spring forward at pace. So the contest on paper is a classic one, proactive possession against a compact, reactive block. The crucial point, and we'll come back to it repeatedly, is that this kind of plan only works while two conditions hold. The game stays level and the team stays 11 against 11. Now 9 minutes in, this plan of South Africa meets reality. South African goalkeeper Ronwen Williams, who was impeccable till then and had made quite a few good saves, gives a dangerous pass to Yaya Sithole. Now Sithole's day or night would start going bad to worse from that moment on. But what he did with that pass was that the press from the Mexicans, he made an error. And Julián Quiñones, attacking the right channel, got a yard and drove low through Ronwen Williams' legs. So that was basically two mistakes by Williams in less than 5 seconds. The pass and then letting the ball through his own legs. 1-0, and that's the first goal of the tournament. To South Africa's credit, the rest of the first half was damage limitation carried out well. Mexico, with the lead secured, did not force the issue. They circulated possession patiently, probed the edges of the box, and importantly did not overcommit their numbers. This is mature game management, a lead protected without inviting a counter. And the South African back five did its job. It absorbed the pressure, held its shape, and conceded nothing further before the interval. At halftime, it is still 1-0. So in purely defensive terms, the plan was bruised but intact. But what was missing? Because that tells you basically the ceiling of this performance. The missing part was that there was no counter at all. Foster and Reina, the two players the entire structure was built to feed, saw almost no service. South Africa were so occupied defending that they could not transition. They could not relieve the pressure, hold the ball up in the pitch, or earn themselves a breather. They were surviving competently, but survival was the absolute best case. There was no mechanism in the plan to actually get back into the game. There was only a mechanism to stay in it. Now, what we have been saying is basically the analysis part. There are some stats which will show you what we are saying matches up. So you can see the XG for Mexico was 0.69 and for South Africa in the first half was 0.06. Although they had ball possession and although there were a lot of passes by both the teams, but those passes were not in the dangerous area for South Africa. Mexico had the big chances, Mexico had more shots on target, Mexico had more total shots on target, so 10-2. You can see, understand how that happened. Four minutes into the second half, the match tilts decisively. Gutierrez breaks clear and is hauled down by Yaya Sithole. Remember, his night is going to get from bad to worse. It's a clear denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity, and the only correct decision is a straight red. There's no controversy in the call. The consequences, though, are severe, and specifically severe for this South African plan of keeping the back line intact. Now, Bruce is forced into a trade, whether he should continue to have a back line or have a counter possible. Because he's still, remember, his team is still down 0-1 and there's 40 minutes to play. Bruce chooses to keep his defensive line intact, so he sacrifices a forward and drops even deeper. And the moment he does that, the counter attack, the single offensive idea in the entire plan is gone, and South Africa is on damage limitation. With the man advantage, Aguirre does precisely what the textbook prescribes. He makes the pitch as large as possible. The fullbacks and midfielders push higher. Mexico systematically overloads the flanks, and South Africa are compromised into two deep banks with no realistic outlet to relieve the pressure. The single forward left high is isolated and easily screened. What we highlight here is the discipline of the dominance. It would be easy, a man up and a goal to the good, to throw bodies forward chasing a second or a third and leave gaps in the transition. Mexico did not do that. They took the territory and the ball and accepted that the goal will come when it comes and refused to give both to South Africa. So there was not even a half chance of a counter that might reopen the game. Possession in this phase was not just the objective, it was the instrument. And the gap opens up on 67 minutes. Mexico kills the game off on a counter attack. The very weapons South Africa were built to use turned against them against a 10-man defense stretched exactly as Aguirre intended. So Mexico breaks at speed, works the ball into the right channel for Alvarado, who delivers a precise cross to the back post from the right side. And Raul Jimenez, who has been outstanding throughout the match, climbs to head it past Williams. 2-0. Jimenez's first World Cup goal, and it settles a contest that had been lopsided for nearly 20 minutes. So the tactical lesson that sits underneath the goal is that when you go a man up and stretch a deep block horizontally, you don't only create space in front of the defense, you create space in behind it because defenders are pulled out to engage the ball and the line distorts. Aguirre's side widened the pitch, drew South Africa across and then attacked the space the stretching created. The timing of the break was skill, the structure made the opportunity inevitable. And then we saw something bizarre. South African evening unraveled when at 84 minutes, Zawane caught a Mexican player with an arm to the face. There was a VAR review and it's a second South African dismissal and they're down to 9. But Mexico were not immune to the chaos either. Deep in stoppage time, Cesar Montes picked up a late red of his own. So the closing minutes are played out 9 against 10. For the record, 3 red cards in a single match in a World Cup openers is a first. The last time there was 2 red cards was back in 1990 when Cameroon were down to 9 men but still managed to beat Argentina. Match of the second half is how the half went. So remember, Mexico's XG in first half was 0.69, that went up to 0.77, and South Africa's XG was 0.06, that went down to 0.02. Ball possession also went up for Mexico. You can see that big chances, corner kicks, all of that are very lopsided in favor of Mexico. So let's look at the two managers and give our verdict on them. So let's take Aguirre first. His was a proactive management followed by controlled management. He pressed high early and punished the first South African error. Once a man up, he widened the pitch rather than narrowing the game, stretched the 10 men until they broke. He picked the right moment to strike on the counter through Alvarado and Jimenez. And he managed the closing stages calmly even after Montes' late dismissal added a complication. It was a complete game management performance, nothing flashy, all to the plan. Bruce of South Africa is harder to judge, and I want to be even-handed here. His starting plan was reasonable. A compact 5-3-2 designed to frustrate a superior side is exactly what an underdog should consider. But the match attacked his plan at its 2 weakest points in sequence. The 9th minute goal forced his team to take risks earlier than the structure could absorb. and the 49th minute Red then removed the counter entirely and forced him into pure containment. After that, there was genuinely no version of the plan left to adjust to. His levers had all been taken away by his own decisions, not by his own decisions, but by the scoreline and the cards. So there was no great chase match going on, and we need to give the fact that Mexico executed a sound plan, accepted an early gift, and pressed home a numerical advantage with composure. They were efficient rather than spectacular, and they rarely had to move out of second gear. South Africa's setup was defensible, but it asked for a level of discipline the players simply could not provide on the night. Sitole's dismissal turned a competitive fixture into an exercise in damage control, and the later cards merely underlined a story that was already written. Now, looking forward, because that's what matters now, there are real takeaways for both. For Mexico, the encouraging signs are structural. The high fullbacks caused problems, the pressing triggers were sharp, and the game management was mature. The open question is how they cope against an opponent who keeps 11 on the pitch and makes them break down a disciplined block every over 90 minutes. For South Africa, the plan wasn't the problem, the execution and the temperament were. There is a competent defensive framework here, but it will count for nothing in this tournament if it cannot be paired with composure. Bottom line, Mexico didn't need to be brilliant, they needed to be professional, and they were comprehensively so. South Africa's tactics never got the chance, their own discipline denied them. The hosts did their job, the guests beat themselves. So that was the opening match of World Cup 2026 and of Group A. Our professional nights were for Mexico, a chastening one for South Africa. I would value your take on this. Was this a genuinely impressively controlled performance from Mexico, or did 3 red cards flatter a side that was rarely tested? And could South Africa's framework still serve them later in the group? Leave your analysis in the comments. I will read them and I'll pin the sharpest tactical points in the video chat. If this tactical analysis was interesting for you, we would request you to hit the like button for this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to European Footballer Adda. And hit the bell icon too, as we are analyzing every significant fixture in this tournament right here in the tactics room. We will be back with another match tactics discussion from the World Cup. Until then, thank you for watching the tactics room. Study the game, and I'll see you at the next whistle.